Hey, what's going on, everybody? Hope you guys are doing awesome. Starting it off with the Arizona Cardinals fantasy team preview. Going to be going over all the players, that I like and you want to draft for the Cardinals this season, where they're getting drafted, all their fantasy point info. So yeah, going to be covering these for all the teams, so be sure to check out these videos every day to get you ready for NFL season. Just right around a month away from NFL, and hopefully you guys are getting ready for your drafts here soon. So yeah, going to be covering the Cardinals, and we're going to hop right into it here. We got D-Hop being drafted in the late second round. At number 17 is where he's currently being drafted. Love D-Hop, one of the best receivers on the board. You know what he's going to bring to you, bring this season. We got Kyler Murray being drafted, in the beginning of the sixth round at number 61. Love Kyler Murray. Had him as my quarterback last season. Definitely didn't disappoint. Big things for Kyler Murray in this offense this year. Chase Edmonds getting drafted right behind Kyler Murray, sitting at number 63. Love Chase Edmonds. I think he's going to have an unbelievable season on the ground and in the receiving game. We pray that injuries don't happen, but I expect big things from Edmonds. And besides that big three right there, you're taking kind of flyers on everybody else here. You got James Conner being drafted at around 110. Really good security blanket if you want to get Conner in the late round. He's going to get a lot of opportunity this season, so I don't hate the pickup of Conner. Could be a solid backup. And then after that, you got Rondale Moore, an exciting young product from Purdue at wide receiver, being drafted at 156. You got A.J. Green being drafted at 195. And that's really it. Besides Max Prater, the kicker, which is going to have a phenomenal year this season, being drafted at 192. So those are really the only options I like for the Cardinals here. We got D-Hop coming off a 115 reception, 1,407 yards receiving season, with 6 touchdowns. He finished with 287 fantasy points. His projections this season are 112 receptions for 1,363, 7 touchdowns, and 290 fantasy points. So where D-Hop's going to stand there. Expected to have another phenomenal season. Love D-Hop as your number one receiver. Kyler finished the season with 378.74 fantasy points. Threw for 39.71, threw 26 touchdowns, 12 picks, and had 819 yards on the ground with 11 touchdowns on the ground, which was huge for fantasy. Projections, somewhere around the same here. They're projecting him to throw for 4,064 yards, 25 touchdowns, 12 picks. Projecting him a little bit less on the run yards with 727, and then 9 rushing touchdowns to finish with 355 fantasy points. So still, an elite option at quarterback for Kyler. Chase Edmonds finished the season with 168 fantasy points. He's projected this year to get 203 fantasy points, so that's a really nice boost. Finished the season with 448 yards rushing. Only had 1 touchdown, but had 53 catches for 402 yards and 4 touchdowns. This season, he's projected, to get way more yards and touchdowns here with 688 yards, 4 touchdowns, and they're projected his receptions to stay about the same with 54 catches for 402 yards and 3 touchdowns. Conner's last season with the Steelers, pretty disappointing. Had 164 fantasy points, ran for 721 yards, 6 touchdowns, only had 35 catches for 215 yards. Kind of lackluster, but he was injured a lot last season. They're projecting him to get 711 yards rushing, 7 touchdowns, and 28 catches for 203 yards and 1 touchdown. Love James Conner in the hundreds. Should get a lot of opportunity all season. They're projecting Rondale Moore, the exciting Purdue wide receiver rookie, to get 148 fantasy points, which is really, they have high hopes for him on this fantasy projections here. Projecting him to get 58 catches for 686 yards and 4 touchdowns. I can't say Rondale Moore is draftable. I think he's more of, I bet he'll be on the waivers, but who knows? He could be, maybe A.J. Green plays bad and he fills in that number 2 role, maybe that 3 role, and could be productive like these fantasy projections have him slated out to be. Then we got Matt Prater. I think he's going to have a great season this season as a kicker. Finished last season with 110 fantasy points, went 21 for 28 kicking, and had 38 of 41 on his extra points. Coming into an offense, he's never had a great offense in Detroit. Coming in here kicking for the Cardinals in a more explosive offense here. Projected to get 130 fantasy points, so a big boost for Prater. Love Prater here. And then, AJ Green last year had 111 fantasy points. They're projecting him to get 134 fantasy points, 48 catches for 601 yards and 4 touchdowns. If he can live up to those numbers, he could be a potential flex option this season, but we're going to have to see how it is for AJ Green. I'm not sure if he's draftable. Maybe if it's your last pick, take a flyer on AJ Green. He does have high upside just because of the name. If he plays healthy, could be a solid number 2 for the Cardinals this season, and because D-Hop gets all that pressure, so AJ Green could be open a lot more. So we will see. AJ Green hasn't been trustworthy these last few seasons, but that's pretty much it for the fantasy aspect of the Cardinals here. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. I will be doing these videos for every team. I'm going to be covering anything and everything fantasy. Once fantasy season starts, I'll be having my daily shows with fantasy, going over, the best performances of that weekend, who to draft, who to pick up from the waiver wire. I'm going to be covering all that, so it's going to be super awesome. So be sure to stay and join the ride. It's going to be fun, and I appreciate you guys. Stay tuned for the next video. I'll see you guys tomorrow.